begin to understand. And this is another thing. A lot of people think that Hindus are polytheist because there's I believe over 30,000 gods, maybe over 80,000 gods in Hinduism. That would be a really interesting study to try to collect. Actually, there could be, every human being could be a god in Hinduism. So you could have over 7 billion gods on the planet, technically speaking. But there is only one God. So even though you can have 7 billion gods, they're really just manifestations of the one. So both statements are true, kind of like this sort of thing. Monotheism, atheism, polytheism, the truth is the whole. There is one God, there is no God, there's many gods, all of them are true. There's only one ultimate thing, one ultimate reality. Is that helping or making it confusing? Questions, comments yet? Are you tracking? The silence is pleasant but disturbing.
I'm just thinking about the Bible, saying that we should not have other gods. So in a way, it's kind of acknowledging that there will be that belief.
But see, how many gods does Christianity have?
Well, one. But then you think about the Trinity, yes. 3 in 1.
Oh, yes. So is it 3 or is it 1?
It's 1.
Right. But it has 3. What's the Orthodox term? Manifestations? Mm-hmm. Personalities? How many essences? 1. 1 is Orthodox Christianity. But it's the same for Hinduism. 1 essence, 1 reality, limitless manifestations. See, Hinduism actually started off as a polytheistic religion. Just like the ancient Greeks, Egyptians, they had different gods and goddesses. Like I believe Indira, who India I think is named after, is the god of war. You had Anji, the god of fire. You had this pantheon of different deities. That as the Hindu saints who were beginning to compile the Vedas, and that's the earliest form of Hindu scriptures, when they began to compile these things, they were looking at these different gods and goddesses of India. So let's just say, use the symbol for God, but there wasn't just one God that they were worshiping. And they had different names, like Indira, maybe certain people were worshipping regions or rivers like the Ganges, or certain sacred mountains. Maybe some people were worshipping animals or goats or trees. And then you started to get into this new Indian type pantheon. And you started to get different types of thoughts and beliefs and worshiping patterns. So someone started talking about, well, maybe there's like a high god that we really can't observe, and we'll call them Brahman. And maybe there's like a trinity or different parts of Brahman, like Shiva or Vishnu. And maybe there's certain incarnations like Krishna. And then when the people of the subcontinent of India come into contact with other world religions or other elements within their own religions, they might actually even see things like Buddha as a manifestation of the divine in certain sects. Or when they hear about Allah, or even his prophet Muhammad, or when they hear about Jesus and the Christ, or maybe they hear about the Jews and the Hebrews and Yahweh, or they hear about Shinto or Confucianism and Kami, or Native American things like Wakantanka, the Great Spirit. And there's room. I mean, everything can go in here, including you, me. It's like fill in, name here. You become part of the pantheon, and there's always room for more deities. But the point is, there is only one God, but infinite manifestations. So it's like God is like a great jewel, and we see different reflections, kind of based on like who we are, where we are, what we're able to perceive at this stage in our life. And so we're all looking at the same thing, we're just seeing different manifestations of it. Does that make sense? And what Hindus believe is that all of these traditions, if they follow their true teachings back to the source, it will take you all to the same place. There's only one place to go, because there's only one thing and only one being. And that's God, or it is, or that which is beyond any name. Pretty good stuff. All right, I want to read you a little bit from the Upanishads. The Upanishads changed my life. I was brought up Baptist fundamentalist, and we would have missionaries come in every once in a while that had been to India or other Hindu-type or pantheist-type countries. And when they come back, they talk about how ignorant and backwards people were, and how they were actually worshiping like stone idols, or trees, or the river, or things like that, or monkey-headed gods, or elephant-headed gods. And as a little kid and growing up in 20th century, latter part of the 20th century America, I was thinking, how is that possible? How could people be that ignorant? But I had no idea about what Hinduism was really about until one day when I had kind of had it with Christianity. I was looking around at other religions, and I came across the Upanishads, and it just blew my mind. So I want to read you this little section. I never thought about Hinduism the same, or God the same after this. And I'm going to make the Indian names a little more American, so they're not hard on you. When Sam was 12 years old, his father, Dal, said to him, "Sam, you must go to school and study. None of our family, my child, is ignorant of Brahman." Therefore, Sam went to a teacher and studied for 12 years. After committing to memory all the Vedas, he returned home full of pride in his learning. His father, noticing the young man's conceit, said to him, "Sam, have you asked for that knowledge by which we hear the unhearable, by which we perceive the unperceivable, by which we know the unknowable?" "What is that knowledge, sir?" asked Sam. "My child, as by knowing one lump of clay, all things made of clay are known, the difference being only in name and arising from speech, and the truth being that all are clay. As by knowing a nugget of gold, all things made of gold are known, the difference being only in name and arising from speech, and the truth being that all gold exactly so is that knowledge, knowing which we know all. But surely these venerable teachers of mine are ignorant of this knowledge, for if they had possessed it, they would have taught it to me. Do you therefore, sir, give me that knowledge?" "Be it so," said Dal, and he continued thus. And now he's going to give you kind of like the essence of like the deep inner teaching of Hinduism, so I want you to really grasp a hold of this. "As the bees make honey by gathering juices from many flowers, plants, and trees, and as these juices reduced to one honey do not know from what flower they originally came, similarly, my son, all creatures, when they are merged in that one existence, whether in dreamless sleep or in death, know nothing of their past or present state. Because of the ignorance enveloping them, know not that they are merged in him, and that from him they came. Whatsoever these creatures are, whether a lion or tiger or boar or worm or gnat or mosquito, that they remain after they come back from dreamless sleep, all these have their self in him alone. He is the truth. He is the subtle essence of all. He is the self, and that, Sam, that art thou. Please, sir, tell me more about this self." "Be it so, my son. The rivers in the east flow eastward, the rivers in the west flow westward, and all enter the sea. From sea to sea they pass, the clouds lifting them to the sky as vapor, and sending them down as rain. And as these rivers, when they are united with the sea, do not know whether they are from this or that river, likewise all those creatures that I have named, when they have come back home from Brahman, know not from whence they came. All those beings have their self in him alone. He is that truth. He is the subtle essence of all. He is the self, and that Sam, that art thou. Please, sir, tell me more about this self. Be it so, my child. Bring a fruit of the Nigroda tree. Here it is, sir. Break it. It is broken, sir. What do you see? Some seeds, extremely small, sir. Break one of them. It is broken, sir. What do you see? Nothing, sir. The subtle essence you do not see, and in that is the whole of the Naya Groda tree. Believe, my son, that that which is the subtle essence, in that have all things their existence. That is the truth, that is the self, and that, Sam, that art thou. Please, sir, tell me more about the self. Be it so. Put this salt in the water and come to me tomorrow morning. Sam did as he was bidden. The next morning his father asked him to bring the salt, which he had put in the water, but he could not, for it had dissolved. Then said Dal, sip the water and tell me how it tastes. It is salty, sir. In the same way, continued Dal, though you do not see Brahman in his body, he is indeed here. That which is the subtle essence, in that have all things their existence. That is the truth, that is the self, and that, Sam, that art thou. And that's Hinduism in a nutshell. Water is such a great analogy. It moves, it manifests in different forms, but there's the same amount of water at any given time since the beginning of creation. It's always existed. Some of it's in the ocean, some is as vapor in the clouds, some is as rain, some is as rivers, some are in lakes, ponds, but it all comes back to the sea. It's like this great cosmic loop. Brahman manifests himself out into all forms, or God manifests himself out into all creation, but then he returns back to himself. It's like those fountains, like you see, those recirculating fountains, but in a cosmic loop. And everyone's at the center all the time. You just keep changing form. And so water is an excellent example. Brahman, or God, is like the ocean and the sea from which we all come. We're born out of him, cast out into this world, and then we make our way back home to the sea, back to the ocean, back to Brahman. But when the raindrop or the snowflake makes it back to the ocean, he's no longer thinking of itself as, hey, I'm this individual raindrop. You're part of the ocean. You're part of the water. Questions? Comments? Yes?
Do Hindus believe that everyone is of Brahman? Like, people of other religions, and they can return to Brahman too?
Yes, there's only one religion with many manifestations. Everyone's really a Hindu, whether they realize it or not. In fact, Hinduism isn't even the real name of a religion. It was made up by the British when they came to India to try to deal with all these diverse manifestations of this worldview. Remember, pantheism, that's like a world religions term developed in the West to try to explain a phenomena that's beyond explanation. Just like the word Hindu is a Western designation to try to explain what's going on in all these different sects in India. Because Hinduism is wildly diverse. Like I said, there's lots of different gods, goddesses, manifestations. But what I'm trying to teach you is the underlying principle behind all of it. And maybe I should make that clear. I'm not trying to teach you folk Hinduism, like how to celebrate Ganesha festivals or Krishna, how to become a devotee of Krishna, and those sorts of things. I'm trying to get you to see like the big picture and to pull back the veil and see what's at the root.